Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content.
So, J-Mac, I do Colin right wrong on a Monday, but one of the things I always try not to be, I try to be fair, even though I'm critical, and sometimes people say, well, you kind of pick on blankety blank, and you're always harsh, and I was thinking this morning, I tend to be old school. I love to sit down and write letters. I do it all the time. Not long letters, but I like to write letters. I love the post office. I love stamps. And so I thought, last night I sat down watching the Yankees and Red Sox, and I penned some letters, and I'd like to share them with the audience.
Yes, cannot wait to hear them.
People I've been a little critical of. The first one I wrote to Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron doesn't like me, and that's okay. A lot of people don't like me, but I wrote to Aaron. I said, listen, dear Aaron Rodgers, I was wrong to call you a snarky, prickly, weird uncle. You are a baller, not a bailer, after all. My bad, bro. You've been magnetic, energizing, and resilient in Pittsburgh, the rare eccentric quarterback who is pointing Steel City out of the darkness and in to the lights. Yours, CC. And then I wrote another letter to Daniel Jones. Dear Danny Dimes, I said you were a bland, vanilla, unremarkable turnover machine. I was wrong. You're a steady, gritty, you're bankable. And now I'm coining you Danny Dollars after minting your franchise valuable. Yours, CC. But I wasn't done. I had to get a new pen. I ran out of ink. I got a new pen, and I wrote another letter to Baker Mayfield. Dear Baker, I once called you an immature, undraftable, two-time transfer, a frat guy in commercials. Well, it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong, and, well, I'm 6'2". You are undeniable. A flag-planting rebel, a team captain of a pirate ship, the walk-on quarterback forcing foes to walk the plank. Yours, CC. I wrote some other stuff on the back of that, but I'm not going to show you. Dan Campbell. I wrote one to him, too. My wife's from Michigan, so I knew the zip code. Dear Dan Campbell, I laughed at you as a too-much rah-rah, kneecap-biting meathead. And it turns out chomping on knees is authentic and strategic and culture correcting. With you at the helm, the Lions are never down, even when it's fourth. Yours, CC. This one was tough. This last one, I was pretty brutal. I got to be honest. It was tough. And I don't know the area code in Dallas. Zip code, excuse me. I wrote to Brian Schottenheimer. I said, Dear Shotty, I called the Cowboys a 2-win team after I saw your backwards visor. It was a lie, excuse me. It was a lie. You're 2 losses and a tie. All right, that's being a smart aleck. It's all going to change. You're steady and adaptable. You're stabilizing. I'm sorry, Coach Schottenheimer. You proved that a backwards visor is just forward thinking. Yours, CC. See, J-Mac, sometimes you have to sit down and be pensive, poignant, and tell these people, listen, I know it's rough. Hopefully they open their mail. A lot of people these days don't even go to the mailbox.
Yeah. Is this the new Colin, your Midwest sensibilities? You're writing apology letters and for week 5 of the NFL? By the way, Schottenheimer, you should have just torn that one up. There's no way that they're doing anything with that guy at the helm. No shot. And quickly, on Dan Campbell, he was a little goofy at the beginning, remember? He was.
He was.
They've turned it around. We'll see if it continues.
One of the people in the NFL that I've just always respected their opinion was Bill Parcells. Parcells loved him. And so I was like, oh, come on, Bill. Jeez, he comes. You know what? I was told, I think I've told this story a couple of times, so I'm sorry, but most of you don't listen all day. So I was told by a GM that I was in the offseason, I was asking him about hiring coaches and how hard it is. Like 7 new guys every year, 5 don't work. Andy Reid or Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton, that's the easy stuff. But a lot of times it doesn't work. And he said, you're really hiring a CEO. He doesn't have to know schemes. If you get Andy Reid or Shanahan, that's a bonus. You don't need a scheme guy. You need a man who can stand in front of 55 alphas and lead the team over the hill, create self-belief, because everybody's hurt by week 5. Guys have to believe in each other. That's very much Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh loves his players, so his players will do anything for him. And that's Dan Campbell. And then that's what I've questioned with Mike McDaniel. I don't question the intelligence. He's a scheme guy. But you can make it in this league being a culture creator and not good with schemes.
Well,
You can't. It's yet to be proven if you can make it as a great scheme guy, but your players don't really trust you or believe in you. And Dan Campbell, I remember his first year and a half, they were bad. And I went on the air. I think they played Baltimore at home. They lost. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a team in the league play as hard as they do. They're getting hammered. They don't have personnel. So I think if you're a great CEO, you don't have to be anything in the scheme department. If you're a great scheme guy, if you don't have the ability, that was always the knock on Matt LaFleur. Everybody knew he was a great scheme guy, but he wasn't a guy who had ever stood in front of the room. And he's not a real big, brash guy with a big ego. Now, he's become very good at that. But I remember talking to a GM, they say he's super smart, but he doesn't have the McVay. Like McVay walks into a room and he's just like, wow. Matt's kind of quiet. He doesn't need to talk a lot. But he's developed into a great culture guy as well.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's tough because with Campbell, yes, I agree with everything you said, 100%. But Colin, there's going to come a time when there's 2 minutes left and it's 24-all, right, of the NFC Championship game. And all that CEO stuff that Dan Campbell brings to the table is not going to get you over the top and get you to the end zone, right? You need the scheme. So like most things in life, it's a little 50-50, maybe 60-40.
You hire the scheme.
Right. So remember, Ben Johnson, as the OC, they make the jump to light speed. But early on in the Dan Campbell era, they weren't great. They needed that scheme guy. Now, have they found him in whoever their OC is now?
Johnny Morton.
See. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, listen, the Bengals game could be dangerous. I'm seeing an injury report. I know you don't like them. Lions could be down both starting cornerbacks against Chase and Higgins.
Philadelphia is a great example. Sirianni's more CEO. He's not a scheme guy. So when he had Steichen, he looked great.
Yes.
Steichen leaves, he's awful. He hires Brian Johnson. It doesn't work. Then he hires Kellen Moore. It works. Kellen Moore leaves. They've got a new guy in. Now it's not working.
Right.
So Sirianni has been incredibly dependent on Howie Roseman's drafting, but he's been as good. Nick Sirianni's an offensive guy. He has been as good as his coordinators because he's not a scheme guy. He's heavily Now, he's hired a great one, and then he missed. And they hired a better one. Has he missed? We don't know. But
it's tough. That's tough. It's like drafting. You don't know what you're getting. Some of these OCs, remember the Houston Texans 2 years ago thought they had their guy. Awesome OCs, lighting the world on fire with Stroud. He's gone. Where's Slowick now? What's he doing?
I mean, half these guys. I mean, did anybody ever think Tom Coughlin would beat Brady and Belichick in 2 Super Bowls when he was at Boston College? I mean, you don't know who you're hiring sometimes. So there's a story out today is that the Vikings are in a little bit of a dilemma. And the headline today is it too early to question what the Vikings did letting Sam Darnold go? All right, so Sam Darnold was great in Minnesota, much better than I think J.J. McCarthy could ever be. I really believe that. He had 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, 4,300 yards last year. It was unbelievable on the road. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is that. Darnold in Minnesota had a 103 passer rating. Darnold in Seattle has a 107 passer rating. He's an elite athlete. He is big. He is strong. I always said he's somewhere between Carson Wentz and Andrew Luck. He's a really, really big-time talent. Can be a little reckless, but if you give him a good coach and structure, he's a baller. He's a great player. So that's the first thing is I think they wanted to sign Sam Darnold, but they wanted a bargain, and Sam's agent and Sam said, no, I want to be a starting quarterback without some young guy hovering over me. So the first thing, I'm going to defend Minnesota. It is really hard to find a franchise quarterback. Really hard. Go look at the Jets since Joe Namath or the Dolphins since Dan Marino. Cleveland, let's not even get into it. I mean, the Saints have only had 2 really elite franchise quarterbacks in the entire franchise history, Archie Manning and Drew Brees. I mean, strangely, Cincinnati, weird, cheap Cincinnati, always gets quarterback right. Kenny Anderson, Boomer Esiason, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton made the playoffs 4 times, and Joe Burrow. Yeah, small market, frugal to the point of being cheap. The Bengals have always nailed it. The Chargers, who disappoint fans, always you kind of feel deep down they underachieve. The Chargers get quarterback right. Dan Fouts, Stan Humphries took him to a Super Bowl. Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert. But I mean, Tampa's been around since 76? Baker Mayfield's the first quarterback they've ever had to make multiple Pro Bowls. So it is hard to find a quarterback. And we bang on Tua, but I mean, the Dolphins, let's be honest, he made a Pro Bowl. They had the number 1 offense with him. But he feels small. It's hard. You take Tua. You keep him. You extend him, I guess. I didn't like the contract, so it's very hard. The second thing is, once you draft a quarterback, like J.J. McCarthy in the first round, are you going to cut bait? What are you supposed to do, not play him? He's played a couple games. And one of his quarters was great. The other 7, not so much. But, he's young. I thought he was overvalued. I thought he was more of a second-round quarterback. But, whatever. But what are you going to do? They wanted Darnold, but they wanted him on a discount. They liked Daniel Jones. They wanted him on a discount. Well, Daniel Jones wants to start without J.J. McCarthy breathing down his neck, and Darnold wants to start. So, Darnold and Daniel Jones are like, well, you got this young guy behind us. The minute we struggle, go to 2-game losing streak, we're out. So I don't blame Darnold, I don't blame Daniel Jones, and I don't blame Kevin O'Connell. You got to play him. He just looks like he's a little overwhelmed. And Kevin O'Connell, as this season now is at a tipping point, does it circle the drain, talks about their quarterback position.
Played a lot of guys at the position, and we've, tried to navigate those times by, being at our best for that player, and ultimately try to do the things that they're most comfortable with. And that can be different when you think about Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy to now Carson Wentz, and there's been others that have played at a really high level and helped us win some games along the way as well. So I think it's just it's not leaving any stone unturned.
Minnesota feels like the Indianapolis Colts. Good roster, well run, smart GM, excellent offensive coach. And you, for the last several years, are looking for the quarterback. Like, I think Minnesota's well run. I think they have an excellent coaching staff. They got star players everywhere. You're limited in this sport without a quarterback. College football, you can win a natty without a great quarterback. Can't in the pros. And Indianapolis, I've been saying this for 2 years. Everybody's banging on the organization and the GM, Chris Ballard. I keep saying, they got dudes. I follow the draft. They draft good players. They got like 7, 8 elite guys. They have a great O-line. They just didn't have a quarterback. And so, everybody, it's like banging on Major League Baseball managers. Folks, the lineup is set upstairs. What if J.J. Redick drove to the arena in Los Angeles and the analytics department said, here's who has to start and here are the first 3 off the bench? I'm not going to give you all the heat when you lose. So I think baseball managers used to set the lineup. They don't anymore. Jazz Chisholm, you're told he's not playing. The numbers say he's not playing. Well, then he does, and you're like, oh, yeah, he's got a lot of juice. He needs to play. Then Ben Rice, no, analytics say it's a lefty. It's funny, he played last night, 2-0 Yankees. So I hate to be really hard on organizations that I think are well run, the Vikings and the Colts. It's hard to find quarterbacks. I can give you like 6 franchises. God, before Brady and Baker showed up in Tampa, and they have a great GM. They were bailing water for years at quarterback. It is hard.
Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app, it's clean, it's very, very easy to use, and it lets you see the top trends and what everybody else is betting on this weekend. So as we head into week 4, the NFL Sunday slate, you're going to want to check out the Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub. Very latest line movements, the trends that actually matter, some crazy streaks. I love it. You can find live odds, bet on all of the streaks and more right in the Hard Rock Bet app. So if you haven't placed your first bet on Hard Rock Bet, it's pretty easy. $5, place your bet. If it wins, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets on top of your payout. So plus tomorrow on the Hard Rock Bet, you can get a Sunday parlay boost to the game. So you boost a same game parlay or the SGP Max, so your bet pays extra winnings. And then you get to run it back on Monday night with another profit boost. So there's new promos daily. So if you're listening to this later, just open up the app, check out what you've got any day of the week.
We just had one of the great college football weekends of all time. And Urban Meyer is going to join me. So Urban, you went 4-1 against James Franklin, and I have defended him forever. I defended Ryan Day when he was losing to Georgia and Harbaugh. I'm like, okay, who's he losing to? And I've defended James Franklin. But when you have an NFL quarterback, the better offensive roster, you're favored, you're at home, you got to win that game. And I thought Lanning and Dante Moore, I think for the first time ever, Urban, I thought James Franklin deserves criticism. Is it fair?
Certainly it's fair whenever you're at a blue blood place, and Penn State is. But I brought this up on Big Noon, Colin. I might have said this to you last week, that I've been in Columbus when you lose a game, and walking off that stadium and life ends as you know it. I mean, the world goes dark. In Ann Arbor, you lose a game, and I mean, the nasty, et cetera, that you see there. Penn State, the pageantry, the whiteout is second to none. However, I've been at Penn State when we won some close games, and I walk off the field and it's, hey, coach, seen a couple of years and the nicest people. And I'm thinking, I wonder if deep down that, I'm not saying it's good enough, but it's not life or death. So I think he's doing a great job. I think, you talk Ryan Day's got a Wolverine problem and Penn State's got a couple of problems. Oregon, everybody's got their little flaws that they just got to work out. So is criticism right to answer your question? Yes. Is it time to make a change or even talk about that? Absolutely not.
So you coach in the SEC, and I've told people before, is I knew the SEC was different when I worked in Tampa. I was a sportscaster, and I went to do a Florida Gators story. Spurrier was the coach, and Bobby Bowden was at Florida State Spurrier, and it was Wednesday, and I showed up to Gainesville, and there were people parked in the parking lot on Wednesday, and I'm like, I grew up a Husky fan. Like, we love the game, but we didn't show up till Friday night or Saturday morning, and so I felt Kalen DeBoer beating Georgia in Athens, and I'm counting Nick Saban. I don't know of a bigger regular season win at Alabama. I went back last night and Googled it in the last 6 years. You've been there. You watched that. What do you make of how hard it is at these traditional powers to get support?
Oh, it's beyond hard, and it's not something you just get overnight. It's something that got to be sustained, and certainly, you talk about that win. I don't want to say that was a job saver, but it was a job saver. I mean, that was incredible. That was to go into between the hedges there. I've never been there. I've never been to Athens, Georgia, but everything, first of all, you beat a great team, but also, and I made a comment on Big Noon, that is a big boy win there must be some tough ass guys in that Alabama locker room, because they came back from, they were dead and buried after that first loss. People were counting them out. Now they're not being counted out at all.
Yeah, and I thought the coaching was great. Kirby Smart's great. I thought Kalen outcoached him, and I think that mattered. It wasn't a fluky play. It wasn't officials. It was that was a game plan. Okay, so I watched Ohio. I thought Ohio State would win. I thought it would be closer, and I got to tell you, it's interesting. I think Ohio State is playing with so much confidence off winning a national championship. It's like when I watched that Texas game, I'm like, they just were really confident. They didn't panic. They slowed down the offense. I watched them at Husky Stadium. That place has engulfed great coaches. There is something about winning a natty, but when I watch them now, they feel different than they did that moment they lost as a favorite to Michigan. The last 4 or 5 games they've played, Coach, it feels different for Ohio State.
And it does, with the whole new set of coordinators, a new quarterback, and a bunch of new players. And Ryan Day, someone showed me that he moved past Newt Rockne. Whenever you say the words Newt Rockne, the name Newt Rockne and your name next to it, that's pretty cool. So we've won a few national championships. The year after sometimes can be really hard, at times miserable. I don't feel it at all. And I talked to a lot of guys still within the program. And I think what him and his staff are done is nothing less than maybe the best coaching job yet. To have 2 wins, to beat Texas, to go on the road across the country and go into that environment against that quarterback, to me, is a stud. Damon Williams Jr. He's a monster. To hold them, they're playing a whole different level of defense than anybody else in the country right now. And you play defense like that, Colin, you don't lose. If you think about this, walk into the offensive staff room and say, if we score 2 to 3 touchdowns, we win that game. That's what they're doing right now.
Yeah. It's Miami looks the part. They're big physical. I always thought Miami was about 70% a college football job and 30% a pro football job, because they're not like college. It's not about the band. They don't have this massive following. It's a pro market. And so it's interesting. There isn't quite the pressure that you'd get in the Big Ten or the SEC, but it's also harder sometimes to revenue and keep assistants. Do you think Miami is officially back, or it's just NIL, it's this year? What do you make of their kind of resurgence here?
What I like the best is their coaching staff, their head coach, and consistency. He's been fairly consistent. I went back because I'm doing part of Big Noon. I'm going to cover this game, the Florida State, Miami. And not that long ago, Colin, the winner of this game won 8 national championships. Wow. So it's great to see there's a little bit of a, think about that. The winner of this game back in the Bobby Bowden and the Jimmy Johnson, that era, the Larry Coker era, they won 8 national titles, a winner of this game. I'm not saying it's there yet, but I like consistency. I've always had respect for Cristobal. That's his home. If he can't do it, then I'm not sure in our lifetime Miami will ever be back. So yep. I'm not saying they're back yet, but this is as close as it's been in 15 years.
Yeah, they definitely passed the eye test. I've always said college football is better when Texas, Miami, and USC are winning. It just feels
Absolutely.
Bigger. It just feels bigger. By the way, Dante Moore. All these Pac-12 coaches now, I just saw a story this morning. They're all complaining about the travel in the Big Ten, and it's like, oh, stop it. It's not hurting Oregon. I think Dante Moore, if I was an NFL GM, Dante Moore would be my first pick. I'm serious. I thought he blew me away in that game. What did you make of it?
We covered him. I stood next to him. He's not really the biggest guy, but I've watched him play. His performance at the end of that game in overtime was phenomenal. He is the most humble, lead by example type guy. The coach loves him. Dan Lanning loves him. I've always pumped the brakes on that because I think that's the one position that you need time. You need to be time tested. He has not been time tested yet. It's going to, I had Dwayne Haskins, rest his soul, but when people started saying the word, he should leave after 1 year, I would always pump the brakes and say, not that position. And he left. And I still think Dwayne would have been maybe the number 1 pick overall if he came back. I just think that position, there's none like it in all. And once again, I'm not well-versed enough in the other sports. I am in football. There's no position like quarterback.
Yeah.
The amount of stress that's put on you every snap, knowing what everybody has to do, not having a bad day, not having a bad snap. So I think at some point he will be. I would pump the brakes and just his body work has to grow. I love the kid, though.
Yeah. Stoic, calm, and all that pressure.
Yeah, really. Emotional.
Urban
You see him get
Meyer.
emotional after that win?
Did I what?
See him get emotional after that big win. That was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I thought it's just a neat. I covered the Oregon program. That was one of the biggest games in the history of the program. I really believe that. That was an unbelievable for them to travel 3,000 miles and win that game is something else. We watched Bama go into Athens, Oregon go east. Those were huge wins for those programs.
Huge.
Urban Meyer, great seeing you as always.
Thanks, Colin. Same to you.
Every week at this time, best 15 minutes, maybe in TV, 46 years NFL films. Greg Cosell is now joining us live. Rams-Niners tonight. Let's get that one out of the way because the Niners are all beat up. I was watching Puka Nacua last week, 5th-round pick out of BYU. And he's very, very good. I'm not denying that. He's strong. He's hard to bring down. But it does feel like when you watch his historic numbers, some of this is fit. I said this the other day. If you put him in other teams, I think he'd be really good. I don't think it would be like this. When you watch film, how much of Puka is fit and not just talent?
I think you're correct, Colin, because, in fact, this week, because he leads the NFL in targets with 50, and he's obviously been a very good player for the last couple of years since he came in the league. So I looked at all his targets, and think about this. Only one of his 50 targets has he been the single receiver to whatever side of the field he's on. He's always a multiple receiver player. So they use him in motion. They use him in reduced splits. They use him in bunch formations. They use him to what he is. And he's very, very good run after catch. He's so physical and he's so competitive. But when you think of the great receivers, and I'm not saying he's not, but when most people think of great receivers in today's NFL, you think of what we call that boundary X, that single receiver to the short side of the field that just can work one-on-one against anybody. He is not deployed in that manner. So he rarely ever, like I said, one time this year, and by the way, it was a tunnel screen, only one time has he been the single receiver to the side of the field that he lines up on.
So they play the Niners tonight. I said the other day, I think Brock Purdy is still injured. I think the ball's sailing on him. I don't think he gets the push off he wants. I'll defend Brock Purdy. If you're playing at 75, 80%, the ball doesn't come out the same. That's what it looks like to me. What does the film say?
I would agree with that. I thought last week there were a lot of balls that sailed on him. Again, we never know if that's due to injury or not. But to me, they're a much larger issue, quite frankly, because Brock Purdy's a good player, you know, and everybody wants to get into the Brock Purdy discussion on a week-to-week basis. He's proven that he's a quality NFL quarterback. Their issue is they cannot run the football. You know, one stat we always look at is yards before first contact. Do you know who's last in the NFL? Christian McCaffrey. He gets 1.47 yards before first contact. And as good as Purdy can be, or any quarterback for the most part, if you can't run the ball at all, and particularly that team, the foundation of how they go about doing everything offensively starts with the run game, and they've been unable to run the ball with any sustainability or any consistency.
Yeah. Let's revisit Jackson Dart. I thought it was good. What I liked about the game plan, it was very intentional. They clearly designed plays for him to run. They kind of felt like you could tell the Chargers O-line was beat up. The Giants staff felt like they would win some matchups up front, and it would be a pretty low-scoring game. So they were intentional. They wanted to win field position. It wasn't a lot of big throws down the field. I thought he was good. I don't think he was exceptional. What did the film say?
No, he wasn't. And they played to what he is. They ran the same basic route concepts over and over, and there was one in particular called snag flat that seemed to be open every time they got zone coverage. It becomes a pitch and catch, easy throw. They used his legs. He was clearly in the pocket, a little quick to move. I don't think he saw things really well, but you know, this is to be expected in a first start. He's going to have to become much more disciplined as a pocket player in order to become a really good quarterback. But, you know, whenever I watch guys like Jackson Dart, it always makes me think of the balance between being a really efficient pocket player and the ability to use your legs. And it depends on the quarterback where you fall on that sort of spectrum, where you fall on that line. But he's clearly, in this given game, just his first game, he was a little quick to move. And then some of that is mental. You don't see it the right way. And some of that is just physical because that's what you've always done.
All right, let's move to Lamar Jackson and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
It does feel like, because they've got weapons, Lamar's been around this league for a long time, but it does feel like, are people defending him differently? Now, I will argue that Spags has so many games against him that the more you see of Lamar Jackson, the better your odds are. That's why he's been so great against the NFC. You never see him, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we can't even duplicate that at practice. I think Kansas City's got his number, and I also think they're a little in his head. But are people defending Lamar different?
A little bit. And I think one of the things you're seeing more and more teams do, even Detroit did it, I think the week prior, is they're putting people on the line of scrimmage. So now what your quarterback has to do, Lamar has to do it, is you've got to change protections because you've got to account for people on the line of scrimmage. So what you do is you go to 6- and 7-man protections. Then you drop people out. Teams are using a spy, but they're using it a little bit differently, Colin. And I think this is an important point. The spy is a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. And because Lamar likes to run forward. He's not a guy he's not like Josh Allen, who always seems to run to his right outside. Lamar likes to run forward. So now you have a guy a little closer to the line of scrimmage. There's not enough space. There's not enough room. Yeah, he might be a better athlete than the player who's spying him, but he still needs space. And they're trying to really cut down on his space. Now, I don't know if this is the first time anybody's done this. I can't remember every game in his career. But, you know, sometimes things happen to work in a given week. I'm not a blueprint guy. I don't think, oh, every team should do this and it automatically works. I guess he's going to be out for a couple of weeks now anyway. But I think teams are always trying to tweak and come up with a different way, show different looks, make him think through the play, make him react differently. And it's been effective the last couple of weeks.
So I kept joking with J-Mac all week. I said, if you could just put Xavier Worthy in, it'll give him a deep threat, and it'll give him a guy that can throw to 8 times. I don't think he's a 1, but I do think he forces you to defend differently because of his speed. And it was interesting. They brought him in, and suddenly all the underneath routes were open. So, again, I think when Rashee Rice gets back with Worthy and Juju Smith and Travis, that's a real NFL offense. I don't think they run the ball particularly well, but I do think when I watched that game, I thought, oh, that team can compete for the Super Bowl. I didn't think that 2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that because for the last couple of years, we talked about the Chiefs as being one of the slowest teams in the league. Now, all of a sudden, they're one of the fastest. It's not just Worthy. Thornton is a burner.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown can run. And keep an eye on that back, Brashad Smith, the rookie from SMU. You know, he was a college receiver. I think it might have been in Miami, and then he transferred to SMU where they made him a running back. But this kid is another explosive athlete. He's another guy that runs under 4.4. So keep an eye on him. They'll start using him more and more. So all of a sudden, and it shows up in the way they're playing, they are now again pushing the ball down the field. They did not do that the last couple of years much at all. And when they did, they were not very good at it, even with Mahomes, who obviously can make any throw at a high level. But now, all of a sudden, they're one of the fastest wide receiver units in the league.
Isn't that something? All right, Bills face New England. I'm really interested.
Yep.
I know the Bills are the more interesting team to the country, but I did feel that Drake May was a little less polished.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert. I got to tell you, I like their run room. They found a left tackle. I think he looks the part. They're not going to beat Buffalo. I doubt it. But Greg, I said this last year after about 10 games with Bo Nix. I'm like, that works in the NFL. I watched Drake May. I know it's early, but that works to me. I think he feels comfortable. He's accurate.
I agree.
They're not asking a lot, but you tell me it looks like they found their guy.
Well, first of all we have is what he's done up to this point. You know, I always say this every week when I'm with you. You know, we're not going to talk about what's going to happen in 6 weeks. We have no idea. But what we have right now, we have a poised, composed, comfortable quarterback. And there's two areas where he's been outstanding this year. And I think most coaches would view those as litmus test areas. Number one, he's been phenomenal on third down, Colin. And he's been phenomenal versus pressure. Those are two critical areas for young quarterbacks. Most young quarterbacks struggle with those two things, those two situations. And he's been phenomenal. So I really like what I've seen up to this point. I think their run game needs to start becoming a little better. You know, they've got some good backs. You know, you mentioned Will Campbell, the left tackle. It's really interesting watching him. And I had this conversation with a really well-respected O-line coach and most O-line coaches are a believer in arm length. They say that 60% of the snaps, you can do everything right and you look really good, and arm length isn't an issue. It's the 40% where your technique breaks down, you have to be reactive, and that's where arm length comes into play.
Yeah. All right. Every year I pick a team that I think is significantly better than the experts. Last year it was Washington and Denver. The year before it was the Rams. People thought they were in a rebuild. The year before that it was the Vikings. So I've been in a roll. This year it was the Seahawks. I think John Snyder is an excellent GM. I think the last three drafts have been outstanding. And you and I have both liked Darnold for a long time. When I watch them, sometimes, Greg, I do the sound down test. Turn the sound down, take the announcers out, watch the speed and athletic ability of a team. And when you turn the sound down with the Seahawks and you just forget who they are, that team has got athletes. Jackson Smith and Jigba, yes. I'm sorry, but that's a number one. You're watching Darnold. I don't know. I'm not saying they're Philadelphia. I'm not saying they have that roster, but the film has got to say they're athletic. They play with a lot of energy, do they not?
They sure do. And what you really notice, and yes, Darnold is very, very good, and he's played very well going back to last year with Minnesota and certainly this year. And one of the things he does as well as any quarterback in the league is throw the ball down the field. But you look at that defense now, that defense is really athletic. They're very good on defense, and a lot of people are probably not thinking about them as a really good defensive team. And by the way, they haven't even gotten to play because he was injured in the preseason. Nick Emenwari, I guess he was an early second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, the safety from South Carolina, who I think within the context of how Mike McDonald plays defense is going to be a really impactful player. So to me, this is a pretty complete team. They'd like to get their run game going a little more, but I think it will because Kenneth Walker has a lot of ability. But right now, I look at Seattle as a really solid team.
I want to talk Philadelphia. This is bizarre.
It's totally bizarre.
They have had the two worst offensive halves. Not Tennessee, not Houston, not Carolina, not the Saints. The two worst offensive halves of football have been the Eagles. First half against the Rams, second half last week. they're trying to get A.J. Brown the ball. It worked against the Rams, who don't have size at corner. This thing is, is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the play calling? They go into these holes where it's just a mess. What is it?
It's a hard question to answer, but I will tell you this. The offensive line has not played well this year, and the tape tells you that. And I think the assumption, because it's been maybe the best offensive line in football for the last 2-3 years, the assumption just is, oh, it's a great O-line. Well, this year it has not played to that level. And Barkley, they're still giving him the ball. He's got the most first down rushes of any back in the league, but he's averaging 3 yards a carry. And again, yards before first contact is awful. And Barkley is a little bit of a searcher and a looker when he doesn't feel that he has room. So sometimes he leaves yards on the field. But the pass game, I mean, if I said to you, Colin, here's a team that's not throwing it very well and not running it very well, you'd probably say, well, they can't be very good record-wise, yet they're 4-0. The passing game just is not comfortable to me right now. There's not a lot of clean looks for Jalen Hurts. I don't feel like he's comfortable with what he's looking at. Normally, they work outside the numbers really effectively. Jalen is phenomenal throwing the ball outside the numbers. Other than the Rams game in that second half, you haven't seen much of that at all. So I don't know. To me, it's a mystery, but they're not very good right now on offense.
Okay, so coming out of the draft, I definitely did not like J.J. McCarthy as much as the GMs, and I liked Bo Nix more. So I watched him at Oregon and at Auburn, and I thought with Sean Payton it was going to work. One of the things that I'm always impressed with him is that when it's a ball out into the flat, and it can be to Mims, Sutton, Harvey, anybody, he puts that ball right out in front so the receiver, the pass catcher, catches it running. They don't have to wait for it. It's not a lollipop. It's very Brady. It is a tight spiral, and that's an underrated skill. He is really accurate, like 8-9 yards, just bang, bang, very crisp. He was great against Cincinnati. What does the film say on Bo Nix?
Well, it's funny you say that because 95% of run after catches on the quarterback, not on the receiver. You just have to go back to Bill Walsh for that. We all know that if you watch tape. It's funny you mentioned Nix. The first couple of weeks of this season, he struggled. He was not getting clear pictures. He reacted to pressure that wasn't there. Sometimes it looked like he was inventing pressure. He just didn't play well through the first 2 weeks, which sometimes happens with a second-year quarterback, particularly after they've had success as a rookie. But the last 2 weeks, he started to play better, and I thought against Cincinnati, he clearly had his best game. And I think he's a really solid player. You know me, I don't get caught up in is he top 5, top 6. I don't get caught up in that. But I think he's starting to play a little more comfortably, a little more calmly, and I think that with Sean Payton, he gets set up in good situations.
46 years, NFL film. Greg Cosell, as always, thank you very much.
Thanks, Colin. Love it. Talk to you next week.